Some big names are taking the stage at Bridgestone Arena this week for Freely Fest, a new event that aims to inspire artists and audiences around the First Amendment. One of those performers is a singer and songwriter who has returned to their Nashville hometown with new energy, deep empathy, and a memorable one-word name, Morgan, with an X.
I wrote it down in a journal one day, and I don't know why I wrote it. Stevie Wonder, his real name is Steveland Morris, and not everybody knows that, but in the liner notes of Songs in the Key of Life, he says, "I realized long ago that Stevie Wonder was the vessel in which Steveland Morris gets to communicate his life." And that was Morgan with an X to me. It was like bigger than my name. It was bigger than my family. Whatever it felt like Morgan with the X was the vessel that I could communicate my whole self.
There's also a bit of breaking news in this episode about the return of pride in a pawpaw patch. I'm Demetria Kalodimos. It's Banner and Company. Well, welcome, Morgan.
I'm so happy to be here.
When we have Nashville-born guests of your age, I can probably bet that I read to you as a kindergartner or spoke at your school, right?
You are a legend and have always been, and I really do feel honored to talk to you because the journey that brought me from being that kid who grew up with you here to this moment coming back home, like it's like a very full circle event to talk to you.
You have returned to the hometown after a journey that a lot of artists take, LA, New York, but the New York part of it was to go to Broadway, actual Broadway.
Yeah.
That's a destination for many. How did it work for you?
I was in school in Chicago. I went to Northwestern and I went to an open call for a show that was on Broadway called Spring Awakening. And that it was several auditions, but basically I thought I was auditioning for the tour. And then they called me one day and they were like, "You didn't get the tour." And I was like, "Okay." They're like, "But would you want to do Broadway?" And I was like, I was standing on the street and I screamed. And yeah, I moved to New York and was in Spring Awakening right after it had won the Tony and the Grammy that year. So it was a really thrilling show to be a part of.
Absolutely. What about that lifestyle? Is that 2 shows a day? Is it a matinee and an evening? And
8 shows a week, 2 shows a day on the weekend. I loved it. I mean, like, I love being a part of a group of artists telling a story. And this show, Spring Awakening, if you know anything about it, like, it was about the, like, awakening of youth, like, sort of having this sort of, like, awakening of themselves and sexuality and all this stuff. And we had people walking out of the theater because it was that controversial, which to me, I loved being a part of art that was touching people in a really real way, but also was confronting challenges because it meant that it was alive. But there's a Bob Dylan quote that I go back to where it's like, if you're a fine enough singer, you have plenty of songs to sing, but at some point you want to peel back the curtain and find out what's there. And that's where music found its way to me. I had always been a singer, always been writing music, but I never thought I could actually write what was in my heart, until after that experience of Broadway. I was like, I don't want to focus on singing other people's songs. I want to focus on what's going on in here. And that kind of took me to LA.
do you recall the first time in your life you got applause?
That's such an interesting question. I think that, like, I used to make puppet shows in my house. We had this, like, puppet, wooden thing with, like, a curtain or whatever, and I would, like, put on these plays talking to myself, playing different characters. And I think that I would just get applause there. I remember, and this is sort of like gets to, like, my middle school bullying experience and what made Nashville so hard for me. But, like, I was really bullied in middle school. At one point, I was so bullied, my mom said I didn't want to get out of bed, and I told her, and it's still like hard to talk about, but I told her that I was going to take my own life. And that was like, I can still feel that kid inside who was so scared and bullied. But then I would step on stage and I would sing, and it was like all the superhero movies and power that I had ever like felt like came like flooding through me. And that was the thing about singing that I loved so much, that like saved my life, you know. And you know, I went to Hume-Fogg High School here, and I don't know if I'm
Was
getting
that
off.
a refuge?
That was, because it was a bunch of weirdos. You know, it was like a bunch of weirdos like
In the
me.
best way.
Yeah, in the most beautiful way. Like, and I did choir, and show choir and theater, and I had an English teacher, Mr. Dowland. I don't know why it's making me so emotional, but it's just, he pulled me aside one day and he was like, I can see you have a story to share, and you have to share it, and you have to keep writing your story, you know. Teachers that like reach out of the void and like and speak to you and encourage you, especially at that age, like, they are heroes, you know. I can't help but think about right now, especially in Tennessee, where they don't want teachers to share anything personal about them, or they don't want to acknowledge if a kid is queer or trans or anything like that. They want to completely avoid reaching through and letting kids know that they're safe, especially those vulnerable children. It makes me so angry that that's the Tennessee that we're trying to be right now.
Because that could be the lifeline, that one encounter.
That would be the difference between me being alive and not alive, is having a teacher reach out and say, you are valued and safe and seen and loved for being who you are. It doesn't even have to be about because you're gay or because you're trans or because you're an immigrant. Like, it's like to reach out to a child and say, you're safe, I see you, keep going. That's why I kept going, you know?
Did you ever reconcile that middle school bullying? Was it by a group? Was it by an individual? Or is that just in the past? Forget about it.
I can never, that inner child is screaming within me all the time. And that is like, I get messages all the time of people who are hurting and feel seen inside of my songs. And I know what that's like. I mean, the song on my album is Make It Out Alive. What do you think I'm talking about when I say, like, if we can make it through the night, we'll make it out all right? Like, you know, I get that pain so much. But I also know what it's like to choose to stay alive, to choose to say that there's maybe hope for another day. You know, I had a mother talk to me last night about her teenage daughter struggling, and I was like, I get it. And I get how hard it is right now, especially, you know, the bullying that I felt in middle school. Like, I was bullied. I don't think I've ever like talked about this, because who talks about middle school this much? But it's like, I was bullied where somebody sent a fake email harassing another student and put my name on it, and the FBI had to get involved and like trace this email, because that's what the early internet, you know, it seemed like they were going to care about where these anonymous threats are coming from. Now there's just anonymous threats all the time. You know, I get death threats. I get these people in my DMs telling me that I would be better off dead. And that's the internet that we have right now. It is hard to find hope, but I try to keep going.
So why get involved in speaking out here, a place that was not so welcoming during a substantial portion of your life, in a place where a supermajority seems to have shut things down fairly effectively?
That's a great question. When I came back home in 22, I had just done a song with Sarah Bareilles that did really well, and I was like,
You were on Jimmy Kimmel, by the way.
I think I moved.
Neat.
I think I moved home the day after the Jimmy Kimmel episode aired.
Did they recognize you at Kroger?
I don't think so. I mean, sometimes people recognize me, but I don't know. That it's not. I don't care about that stuff. Like, I just want to make the most meaningful thing is when somebody honestly says to me that my song saved their life. That's the thing I care about the most. But I moved back home, and shortly after I moved back home, we had the Covenant School shooting, and that was like a clear thing to me that that we need like common sense gun legislation. And it felt like everyone around me felt the same way, and everyone showed up at the Capitol. And, you know, I was standing in the hall there singing "This Little Light of Mine," you know, "I'm Gonna Let It Shine," and my song "Pretend Rainbow," and these messages of hope and love. And that was the day that the Tennessee 3 became the Tennessee 3. And I remember being on calls with a lot of my different team members that are in different states. And after that happened, they were like, "What is going on in Tennessee?" And I'm like, exactly. There's like so much beauty here, and there's so much loving energy, but we are like squashed by the people that have been put in power that are supposed to represent all of us, all sides of people, and they are not. They are, I don't know, beholden to lobbyists, beholden to like something that they're holding on to that's like an antiquated idea of what they think Jesus would do. And that's not the vibration of people that I see around me. And so I still feel conflicted, because why fight for a place that refuses to see you and love you and value you? And I think it's because, well, I fell in love, you know, like I fell in love with somebody here, and we bought a farm together, and we're making life here. And that love makes me want to fight for this place, because it makes me want to make it safe for everybody around me. And so, you know, you can throw activist on me, but I'm just a human who loves really loudly, and I want people to feel loved, you know, and that is why I stay. But it is a constant, it's a constant battle.
Let's talk about farmer, which is now on your resume.
Yeah.
I mean, did you have any experience in this, or is this a Green Acres kind of a endeavor?
My mother says Green Acres. My current reference is Schitt's Creek, because
okay.
like my husband is Patrick and I am David, and when I say I know nothing, it's like I know nothing. And literally, I will like, when I know he's like coming around the way or like coming from another part of the farm, I'll like go stand on the ladder and like stand there for the photo op that I know he's going to take, because he's like never sees me on a ladder. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, it's beautiful and chaos and magic. And I always wanted to create a refuge. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I had looked in Joshua Tree. After my dad passed, I went to Joshua Tree a lot. And in the pandemic, a lot of people were leaving LA.
You were still in LA at the time when your dad passed away?
Yeah, I was in LA. And Joshua Tree is where I would go to like find refuge. I read a Patti Smith book. I read a lot of biographies. I read a Patti Smith book. She talked about 29 Palms. And I wanted this like safety refuge. And that didn't happen in Joshua Tree. And then I came back home, and when I met my husband, this is not an exaggeration, I had one fake plant in my house, and one plant you cannot kill. Like I don't even know what.
One of those air plants.
Yeah, it's a plant you cannot kill, and still I somehow got close to killing it. And he moved in with 800 plants. Like literally, that's an exact number. So he has this green thumb. I have this idea of like, can you create safety in a space, you know what I mean? And that is Fruity Farms. You know, we joke Fruity Farm, we grow fruit, and we're gay, obviously, but you know, Fruity Farm is more than that to me. It's becoming it's becoming a metaphor of what community can do in the wildness of these times, in the wildness of Tennessee, in the wildness of the United States. We are creating a beautiful, loving space amidst a sea of red hurt.
It's Banner and Company. I'm Demetria Kalodimos. We'll be right back.
We gather here tonight to bring women back to their rightful place.
The Testaments, a new Hulu original series from the executive producers of The Handmaid's Tale.
It's easier to accept a story than believe that the people around you are monsters.
The battle isn't over.
There comes a time when you have to take action, when you have to choose your own destiny.
Never quite as it seems. Watch the new Hulu original series, The Testaments, April 8th on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
How did you find the property, and did you know immediately, like, this is it?
We looked at several different places. My mom is a realtor, and we actually went to see this after I played Pride in Kentucky somewhere. I can't remember where this was, but there is something magical about going onto the property. There was also this moment where we saw a zebra swallowtail. Uh-huh. And the previous owner was like, there's nothing on the land, like there's no fruit, there's nothing here. And I saw a zebra swallowtail, and it looked majestic, and I looked it up, and it's known to only be around where there's pawpaw. And we had just tried pawpaw at Sean Brock's restaurant, Audrey, because he had dehydrated the pawpaw and turned it into powdered sugar. And I was like, if this butterfly is here, there must be pawpaw. So, we put the offer in and kind of kept moving with that sort of nod. We've gone around and counted, and what we were able to count is 760 pawpaw trees. So this is like a bounty of pawpaw that we are constantly working to work with it. But there's another thing that happened recently, which I'll get into with Pride on Our Farm, but I got a DM from somebody from a photo I posted of a sycamore tree, and she was like, I'm getting chills. She was like, my uncle's ashes are spread around a tree just down from that tree. She recognizes it because her grandfather grew up on that property, and she grew up going to it, and her uncle, who was gay, who was ostracized and sent away, they took his ashes and they actually spread it on some of the land there. Wow. As like honoring him, that he was pushed away at one point, and they wanted to honor his spirit on this land. And then, years later, two gay guys, looking for property somehow end up stumbling on that exact space and feeling this sort of magic. And I don't know what I believe in about God or whatever, but like that kind of moment makes me feel like it's destiny. It makes me really emotional.
How new was Fruity Farm when you decided to make it the surrogate site of Pride in Sumner?
Well, we bought the property in 23. We got married on the farm in November of 24. And then it was 25 where the previous organizers of Affirming Sumner were basically told by, they wanted to do it, but the landlord that owned the space where it first was like, we can't do it, you can't do it. And then a church that is affirming got so much pushback online that they were like, we are affirming, but we cannot take this on in the community. And we didn't have much on the land. We actually, in true United States government bureaucracy, we had actually been approved for a grant through the NRCS to have high tunnels on the farm. And then Trump defunded all of those programs. And you probably saw farmers. There was a farmer that went super viral because he voted for Trump and he was going to lose his farm because he lost these grants. But we sort of saw the writing on the wall, and we didn't do any action on the farm, thinking that this grant would fall through, and then of course it did. So when Pride kind of reached out to us and they're like, can you host us? We had a plot of land that was going to be for these high tunnels that we were like, this could be parking enough for 300 to 500 people. And then we have other space on the farm to do this event. So, we didn't have much to run with, but we were like, absolutely, this is what we will do, is host Pride on the farm.
Were there performances? Was it a celebration?
Listen, it was the best Pride I've ever been to. And I am a big fan of Nashville Pride, Franklin Pride. This has nothing against like any other prides, but throwing Pride in a small town and bringing some of my, wonderful friends from Nashville to perform at it, it was like the best concert. It was the best vibe, food trucks, vendors, families, bubbles. It was what Pride is to me. It was incredible. And the lineup that year, it was Crystal Rose, Katie Pruitt, Fancy Haygood, me, Melody Walker. These were iconic people in Nashville who came out to the farm to sing for everybody for this first Pride at the farm.
So now is this an annual commitment?
We have decided that we are going to continue Pride, and we're going to move it out of June to September so that it's not so busy in June, it's so hot in June. And it also helps to spread the message that you can be gay and have Pride any day of the year. And also Pride in September feels really fitting for the American South heartland, because the September month is the harvest. And that is like to do Pride and harvest together on our farm. That's actually when pawpaw will be ripe, is in September. Feels like we're saying be gay, have pride in who you are, and you don't have to just do it in June. So September 19th is going to be the day that we do Pride this year, and we are going to go bigger than ever. And yes, we will continue doing it.
So are we getting an exclusive here on
You
Banner &
are
Company?
finding out right now for the first time that September 19th at the farm is Pride year 2 at Fruity Farm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cue the fake applause or the sincere applause.
Yeah.
That's great. Your music. How much of you have so much going on between, lobbying and doing what you can on the Hill, organizing, developing your property. How do you have time to do this new recording?
The music is what comes from me. Like, it is what comes through me. Heartland, the word heartland is a word normally reserved for people who don't look and love like me. And again, I don't know what I believe about God and stuff like that, but I do know that I believe that instruments have ghosts in the bones. And one of the best parts about moving back home is that I got my childhood piano in my house here in Nashville.
Ooh.
So
paint a picture of the childhood piano. Are we talking an upright?
It's an upright. It's like a mini upright. I think it's, I don't even know the maker. It's not one of the big names. It might be like I don't even know, but the tone of it rings so beautifully. That what you hear in Heartland, that song, is the voice memo of the piano the day that I wrote it. So the final piano sound is actually a voice memo, which is a thing I love to do because no engineer would say that this is professional recording, but I just absolutely adore the tone of that piano, and that's what I had that day. And you don't need the best equipment in order to do this crazy thing, but Heartland was the song that started this whole project. And sometimes I think that songs just kind of carry me, and that was definitely this album. This album was me coming home and falling in love with this town, even when it keeps breaking my heart.
People pigeonhole other people's music, but someone who has never heard of Morgan is going to say, okay, give me a category. Where would I put you on my playlist? What is similar?
I think gender is like sorry, there. I think genre is like gender, and it's an expression, and I think it's like a sweater you wear. You know, like I think music is music and heart is heart. I think my music's you think of like a good dish. You know, it's got different qualities like banjo, mandolin, strings, guitar, drums, bass, vocals. You could call that folk. You could call that Americana.
Roots.
You could call that roots. But like, you know, when the first song came out for this project, which was Make It Out Alive, it landed in folk pop on Spotify. And I love that term because I think that feels nice, like folk pop. Those are things that I really love. Americana feels exciting to me because it's like, it does have this melding of these genres. But the thing about, you know, country music, which feels like this playground that continues to keep other people out, is like, you know, I grew up here in town and my first job was Tootsie's, singing with the band, like on stage. And you could also say that some of my music has country in it. A woman told me this last night. She was like, I think your music is country. And I'm like, listen, you can think my music is whatever you want. I don't care to place a genre on my music, but folk, Americana, and pop, those feel like spaces that I can claim.
I realized the Tootsie's gig was probably just an exciting gig to get out there and to get the experience, but did you ever have any blowback from folks that had an inkling that you weren't, what they were expecting?
I think that our country has shifted so much in the time from when I did that, because I sang, you know, I would get up and sing Rascal Flatts songs, which like to me, that was like, I actually just wrote with Marcus Hummin a couple weeks ago, which is a dream come true. But like Bless the Broken Road was like, that was my song, you know, and singing those songs on that stage felt important to me. And it didn't matter, you know, who I loved. It was just like, I'm good and these songs are good, and that's what it is. Now it's hard because people want to shut out what is different and ignore, you know, the melting pot of the heartland, you know?
Yeah. You're keeping bees.
Yes. Yeah.
That is it's fascinating, but it's also a little frightening. I mean, have you been stung?
I've not been stung, knock on wood. I think bees are they're a beautiful reflection of what society can be, which is no pun intended, but they they take care of each other. They clean up after each other.
The females are very
strong,
in
charge,
and
very strong.
Charge.
The males are just like literal, just side pieces to the show about women, which is a version of life we could have had. But anyways, yeah, they take care of each other. And then if like an outside intruder, like a wasp comes in, they literally surround the wasp. And because they can withstand higher temperatures, they just vibrate their heat so high and they burn the wasp alive. And then they go about their day because they are protecting each other. You know, they care about the community that is around them, and they work together in tandem. You know, it's a beautiful metaphor of what life can be. And I'm excited to have honey this year from Fruity Farm that we can share with people.
Wow. Yeah. Have you ever seen the zebra swallowtail again?
Oh, yeah. I just saw him yesterday. Because we are now in the pollination time of pawpaw. So these are the moments where the flowers are coming out and the zebra swallowtail is flying around and they are out and about right now.
Wow. I was a butterfly collector when I was a kid. No kids do that anymore because it's so hard to see and catch a butterfly anymore.
Yeah. There's a metaphor there too, where I think that like we're so connected right now, but we're so disconnected. Like we have the ability to be so online, but we're missing out on what makes us human.
It's Banner and Company, and my guest is Morgxn, a singer and songwriter who's back home in Nashville making music for the charts and noise on the Hill. We'll be right back. Spending time on the Hill can be intense. You were there at times of, people getting literally carried out.
Yeah.
What's your strategy? You walk into a room with 2 people or 3 people that you know are dead set against your point of view.
Yeah. My husband and my mom and I went 3 weeks ago when the House passed, I think it's House Bill, I'm forgetting the bill, but when the House passed the bill sponsored by Rep. Bolso that would further clarify the 14th Amendment, could allow private individuals to not recognize same-sex marriage. My husband and myself and my mom went and had a press conference with the Progressive Caucus of the Democratic Party. And my mom actually went sort of viral being like, Governor Lee, like, how can you focus with a family member who is gay? How can you focus on this when people are hungry and gas prices are what they are? And like, how can you focus on like this love that is literally just, we're just lovers, I'm not doing anything. We're just humans who want to love. And I had so many people say like, they called her America's mother because it was just like, they were like, I wish my mother would say something like that, because that's not, I tell my mom this all the time. It's not 100% common that mothers stand up for their child the way that she did that day. But I, sat across from Bolso and Representative Todd, I think that's who it was. I'm now forgetting. But I sat across from 2 Republican, lawmakers who were like, I don't have to recognize your marriage, and I don't care about your feelings, and I don't have to recognize your marriage because of natural law. Like all of this stuff to just try to say, I don't have to care about who you are and how you love. He can hate all he wants, and I'm going to love even louder.
You have a beautiful singing voice and you have a strong political voice. Would you ever consider running for office?
Probably not.
Why?
As an artist, I speak from the heart, and I love really deeply. I have been told by people who have worked with me in the past that I am too political, that I say too much, that people, would rather me shut up and sing, I don't work with those people anymore. It's hard though, because I lose out on brand deals and I lose out on opportunities because I refuse to be quiet. But like, to Freely Fest that I'm performing at, to perform for the First Amendment, this is more than a gig to me. This is confirmation that being an artist who would rather speak up in a time where it's not like it's not cushiony to speak up is more important to me than anything. I think running for office is sort of like it's not my ministry. It's like, and I don't know how the political system fixes itself, but I do know that until moving back to Nashville, I didn't know that you had to be more engaged, that voting was something that happened 4 times a year. Do you know what I mean? Like people, like I'm an artist first, and I'm a human first, I'm an artist second, and I'm an activist only because I refuse to be quiet when other people are hurting.
Let's do the sort of the checklist on Freely Fest. My bad, I forgot to ask about it. But this is an event coming up at Bridgestone. Yeah. And who's on the bill and what's being discussed or celebrated?
The bill, I mean, the lineup is Dominic Fike, Janelle Monáe, The Killers, T-Pain. It's a really incredible lineup, and it is for preserving and protecting the First Amendment. And I've been asked to sing. I can't say what song I'm singing, but the song that I'm singing is a deep honor. And to be able to sing this song on the stage where I graduated high school, is pretty incredible. And it is, like I said, it's more than a gig to me. It is it is the First Amendment helps reserve the right for me to speak up and say what is in my heart, even when people are trying to attack me just because of who I love, you know? And so that's what this festival is to highlight the First Amendment and to celebrate it, you know?
So will this be the biggest crowd potentially for you?
I think so. I headlined London Pride in 2019, and that was 10,000 people in Trafalgar Square. And I think Bridgestone is bigger, right? I don't know numbers, but it's probably the biggest. I think I'm trying not to think about that.
Sure.
So that I can just pretend it's me in a living room with my friends. You know what I mean? Because I get nervous. You know, like I am very nervous. Like I think Barbra Streisand in her autobiography was talking about how she always has stage fright, and it's like that when you are nervous, it's because you care. You know, and so I get nervous. So I don't want to think about the number. I just want to pretend it's me in my living room. It'll just be with some more people.
And the X in your name. I mean, I must ask.
Yeah. I wish I had a better answer other than I wrote it down in a journal one day. This was before my dad passed. I wrote Morgan with an X, where the A was an X. And I don't know why I wrote it. I do know I wrote it on Valentine's Day, which is interesting. But after my dad passed, I wanted to put out music, and the thing was, it felt like I was expressing something from deep within. And again, you can tell that I read like lots of liner notes and autobiographies, but Stevie Wonder, his real name is Steveland Morris. And not everybody knows that, but in the liner notes of Songs in the Key of Life, which is one of my favorite albums, he says, I realized long ago that Stevie Wonder was the vessel in which Steveland Morris gets to communicate his life. And that was Morgan with an X to me. It was like bigger than my name. It was bigger than my family. It was void of the weight of family and whatever. It felt like Morgan with the X was the vessel that I could communicate my whole self. And that's how I chose it. It wasn't trying to be cool, or, you know, I know X's seem cool, but since choosing it, you know, like Mr., Mrs., MX, like I love how the X has sort of represented the genderless or the gender fluid version of things. And so it feels, again, like the farm. It feels like I've made the right choice, and I just keep trying to make the right choice.
Banner and Company is a production of the new Nashville Banner. This episode is produced by Steve Haruch and edited by me. The original music is by Verlin Thompson. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or go to NashvilleBanner.com. You're in good company. Our last question is in the fishbowl.
Oh my God. I could talk to you forever. But,
Aw,
okay.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah. Which one?
Your choice. And, you know, it's a crapshoot. You never know what you're going to get. But if you could read who it's from and read it and give it a little thought.
From Adam Dredd.
How would you get Nashville back on the right path?
Oh, I think like I have a song on my album called God Coded, and it is a song about the hypocrisy of using faith as like a weapon for hatred and hurting other people. And I often get asked, like, well, do you just hate Christians? And I'm like, absolutely not. I know wonderful Christians. I know wonderful people who practice and have faith. But when I look at the hypocrisy of somebody like Kristi Noem and her husband most recently, where they're spouting this like good Christian lifestyle, where they're doing this other stuff in the background, I would need my good Christian neighbors to call out the hypocrisy that is happening around them, because you cannot say that in Jesus's name we would be targeting and hurting immigrant communities. You know, like Jesus would be in the streets with trans people and immigrants. That's Jesus. So I do think that people in Nashville have to speak up, and it's not enough to say, well, I don't do politics, because politics is about to do us all.